My name is Daniel Pierce. I'm 34, a lawyer, and last spring my mother handed my credit card to my sister like it was a grocery coupon. Use your brother's card, she said, smiling. He's got plenty saved. That single gesture cost me $90,000, a family, and the illusion that love and debt were the same thing. The worst part? I didn't scream. I just watched her do it quietly while something in me finally snapped. But what they didn't know was, I wasn't going to clean it up this time. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because what happened next wasn't just about money, it was about control, guilt, and the moment I realized peace was just another word they used to keep me paying. This story goes deeper than that. I grew up in a house that smelled like lemon cleaner and burnt toast. The kind of place where every surface shined, but no one ever said sorry. My mother, Evelyn, believed in appearances, the good kind of dishes for guests, the folded napkins, the practiced smiles. My father, Frank, believed in quiet. He called it peace. I called it distance. When I was 10, I learned that being the good son meant solving problems other people created. Sophie, my sister, was sixth and loud, funny, the creative one. If she spilled milk, I cleaned it. If she cried, I apologized. Mom would pat my shoulder and say, "That's what big brothers do." Even then, I knew it wasn't about love. It was about keeping the picture perfect. One summer afternoon, Dad's car wouldn't start. He yelled at the engine, slammed the hood, and disappeared into the house. I spent 3 hours watching him through the kitchen window as he and Mom argued. The next morning, she handed me a $20 bill and said, "Go to the hardware store, tell Mr. Finch you're helping your father." I came back with the part, fixed it with Dad, and he smiled like it was his victory. "See?" he said. "That's teamwork." I nodded, but something small inside me knew it wasn't. It was me, patching silence again. At 15, I won a state scholarship. I remember holding the letter in my hand, the paper trembling because I wanted her to be proud. Mom looked at the envelope, smiled, and said, "That's wonderful. We'll use half of it for your sister's dance camp." I didn't argue. I didn't know how. I just said, "Sure," and smiled back. That night, I overheard her on the phone with my aunt. "Daniel's such a good boy. He never complains." That was the first time I realized my silence was their favorite currency. College came, and I thought distance would change everything. But every semester, my mom had a new emergency. Her credit card got maxed, Dad's back acted up. Sophie needed books. I sent money, small at first, then bigger. One time, she used my tuition card, just for groceries. When I checked, it was a payment to Bloomfield Jewelers. She laughed when I confronted her. "You're studying law," she said. "You'll make plenty back." When you grow up being the fixer, you forget what fairness feels like. Every favor becomes an expectation, every boundary a betrayal. I graduated early, took a job at a mid-sized firm, and sent my parents my first paycheck out of habit. Mom framed the envelope, called me her responsible one. That word responsible was her leash. Years later, when Sophie dropped out of college to start something creative, Mom called me at midnight. "She's got vision, Daniel. She just needs a little help." "How much?" I asked. "Not much," she said. "Just to get her started." I wired the money. A month later, Sophie posted a photo online with the caption "Soft Life." No stress, no debt, just vibes. The ring light glowed behind her like a halo. I didn't know it then, but that image would come back to haunt me. By 30, I'd become the family's safety net. If Dad's check was late, I covered. If Mom's doctor bill came up, I paid it. If Sophie wanted a new laptop, I delivered it. They never asked how I managed, just assumed I had it. "You're a lawyer," Dad said once. "You'll be fine." What he didn't know was that the $90,000 I had saved wasn't lying around. It was years of saying no to myself so they could keep saying yes. It's funny how love can sound like debt when it's repeated enough. Mom always had these little line sentences polished by guilt. "We raised you. You turned out well. You should give back." And Dad's favorite, "A family is one pocket." At first, I believed that, until I realized I was the only one putting anything in. There was one night, maybe a year before everything collapsed, when I stayed over after dinner. Sophie was on the couch scrolling through her phone, laughing at some influencer talking about manifesting abundance. Mom came in holding a bill and said, "Frank, this insurance payment's late." Dad looked at me, not at her, at me, like the answer was already mine to provide. I reached for my wallet without thinking. Mom smiled. See? That's my boy. It was nothing, just another moment, but it carved deep. I didn't know it then, but that quiet nod, that small, automatic reach for my card was the first click of the lock inside my head. When I turned 31, I started counting receipts the way some people count prayers. Every Uber I skipped, every lunch I packed, every suit I rewore, it was all a step toward one thing, a place that was mine. I'd been saving for years, a quiet, steady climb toward a condo near the river. I even had a folder on my desktop called Someday, filled with listings I couldn't afford yet. That folder became a small form of hope. I didn't talk about it much. My parents wouldn't have understood. Every time I mentioned something, personal plans, goals, even a weekend off, Mom would twist it into a family need. "Oh, that's great, honey," she'd say. "You can finally help Sophie pay off her car." She said it like generosity was oxygen, and I was selfish for breathing any for myself. Sophie called me one Thursday afternoon. "Hey, big bro, you still have that old blender? I'm starting a smoothie thing for my online shop." "It's not a shop, it's a page," I said. She laughed, light and practiced. "Don't be mean. I'm building a brand." The next week, she posted a picture of a designer purse with the caption, "Self-care is an investment." I didn't comment. I didn't say anything at all. Silence had always been my safest language. 2 months later, my mom texted the family group chat. "Sunday dinner, big news." I arrived with a bottle of wine and low expectations. Sophie had filled the living room with ring lights and sample boards, talking about her studio launch. She handed me a laminated list of startup needs: camera, laptop, designer items for collabs. I looked at it and said, "Sophie, I told you, I'm saving for a down payment." Mom sighed, long and theatrical. "You've always been careful, Daniel. Sometimes you have to believe in people." Dad added softly, "We believed in you since you were born," which in our family meant, "You owe us." Sophie just smirked. "Don't be tight, it's family money." Family money. That phrase felt like rust in my mouth. After dinner, while washing dishes, I stared at the faucet's slow drip and counted each fall like seconds of my patience. Mom came in quietly and said, "Don't make your sister feel small. She's just trying." I said, "I'm trying too." She didn't answer. She just patted my back and said, "You're the strong one. You'll understand later." I did understand, just not the way she meant. That spring, things started slipping. Sophie quit her boutique job because the manager had a tone. Mom co-signed a car for her, then called me when the first payment was late. "It's just for now," she said. "You know how hard it is out there." I wired the money, telling myself it was temporary. But nothing was ever temporary with them, just recycled emergencies. By March, I was losing sleep. I'd wake at 3 a.m., open my bank app, and scroll through every transaction like I was auditing my own kindness. That's when I started noticing how invisible I'd become to them. No one asked how work was going, or if I'd eaten, or if I was happy. They just asked what I could fix next. There was a Sunday, late afternoon, rain against the kitchen window, the same sound every childhood memory seems to have. Mom sliced peaches with that tiny serrated knife she's had since I was 10. Sophie scrolled her phone. The TV murmured from the living room. I stood by the counter, reading an email from a client who couldn't stop panicking. Mom reached into the ceramic bowl near the keys, picked up my black credit card, and said it like she was suggesting dessert. "Sweetheart, use your brother's card. He's got plenty saved." I thought I misheard her. "What?" I said. She smiled at Sophie. "Just a few things. Back to school stuff." Sophie hasn't been in school for 6 years. My chest went tight. "Mom, put it back." She didn't. She just kept slicing peaches, calm, dismissive. "Stop being dramatic, Daniel." Sophie laughed. "You're such a lawyer." I wanted to shout, but all that came out was silence. That heavy, well-trained silence. The one that's supposed to keep the peace, but only feeds the rot. Sophie tucked the card into her phone case, kissed Mom's cheek, and left. The door closed, and something inside me clicked. Not rage, not yet. Just the realization that peace had always been one-sided. Mom said softly, "You always make things so heavy." Maybe I did, or maybe I was the only one who realized the house was sinking. I stood there, watching her arrange the peaches, pretending everything was fine. The smell of lemon cleaner mixed with fruit, sweet, and chemical. It felt exactly like our family, something bright that stung if you breathed it in too long. And that's when I knew. It wasn't the card that broke me. It was the moment I realized I'd been overdrafting on love for years. The first alert came 2 hours later. I was at home, sitting on my couch, half watching a rerun of Suits when my phone buzzed. Is this you? $3.89, Electro-electronics. Then another, $450, Lumiere shoes. And another, $18,800, pending transaction. My throat went dry. I opened my banking app. The black card the one mom had handed to Sophie like it was a napkin was lighting up with charges from the mall. I froze the card immediately, fingers trembling, then called the bank. The woman on the other end spoke with the calm of someone who handled panic for a living. Someone's currently at the register attempting a large purchase, she said. How large? She paused. $88,000. That number hung in the air like a dropped chandelier. I didn't think. I just grabbed my keys and drove. The rain had started again, thin streaks on the windshield that looked like cracks. My reflection flickered in every stoplight, jaw tight, eyes hard. By the time I reached the mall, my heart was beating so loud it drowned out the music on the radio. The smell hit me first, cinnamon pretzels and floor cleaner. Then I saw them, Sophie and Mom, standing under bright lights in Brightmart Electronics. Boxes stacked high in their cart. Cameras, tablets, ring lights, designer laptops. Sophie's coat shimmered under the LEDs. She looked like a walking Instagram ad. I walked straight up to them. Give me my card. Sophie blinked, slow, like I was the rude one. Relax. The cashier's almost done. Mom stepped forward, lips tight. Daniel, not here. Don't humiliate your sister. I laughed once, short and sharp. Humiliate her? She's committing fraud. The cashier looked between us, uneasy. Do you want me to process the payment? No, I said. That card is frozen. He slid it through the reader anyway. The screen blinked, beeped, and flashed. Declined. Sophie laughed, like it was funny. Guess your fancy lawyer card isn't so fancy. I leaned closer. I froze it because you stole it. Mom hissed. Stop. People are looking. Good, I said. They should look. For a second, everything went still, the noise of the store fading into static. Then Sophie shoved the card into my chest and stormed out. Mom followed, muttering about my attitude. That was the moment something broke, clean and final. I wasn't angry. I was done. They sat in the food court, sipping smoothies like this was intermission. I joined them. The table was sticky, the floor buzzing with chatter and footsteps. I opened my phone and showed them the charges. $88,000, I said quietly. That's what you tried to spend. Mom crossed her arms. It was for the studio, for her future, family money. I looked her dead in the eye. It's not family money. It's mine. She smiled, cold. You wouldn't have it without us. Sophie rolled her eyes. God, you love being the victim. I took a breath and let it out slowly. No, I just stopped being your bank. Then I stood up and left. On the drive home, I could feel my pulse in my fingers. The rain had turned into mist, coating the windshield like fog. I replayed the moment the card hit my chest. I thought it would feel like betrayal, but it didn't. It felt like proof. Proof of what I'd known for years but hadn't said out loud, that in our family, love was always a transaction. That night, the group chat exploded. Sophie posted a paragraph about being publicly humiliated. Mom followed with, Daniel has control issues. We need to pray for him. Dad replied. Let's all stay calm. I didn't respond. I took screenshots, saved every message, and opened a new folder on my laptop titled Proof. By midnight, my voicemail was full. Mom's voice, furious. You embarrassed me today. You think money makes you superior? You owe us. We did without so you could study. You wouldn't have that money without us. I replayed it twice. Not because I needed to hear it, but because it was the sound of the old script dying. The next morning, a text from Dad. Family meeting. Tonight. 6 p.m. I typed, I can't. I have work. Then I deleted it. I typed, okay. At 6:04 p.m., I walked back into the same house I'd grown up in. The same lemon cleaner smell clinging to the air like a memory that refused to fade. The TV hummed in the background, news anchors smiling about nothing while Mom sat upright on the couch with a notebook, as if this were a board meeting and not an ambush. Dad paced behind her, rubbing his temples. Sophie lounged on the armrest, sunglasses on indoors. "We're going to resolve this," Dad said, like he was the referee of a game I hadn't agreed to play. I nodded. "Great. Resolution is good." I sat, folded my hands, kept my tone even the courtroom calm that usually worked on judges. Mom started. "You humiliated your sister over a misunderstanding." I tilted my head. What part was misunderstood? She glanced at Sophie, then back at me. "We thought your savings were for family goals." I blinked. "Family goals?" "For Sophie's studio," Mom said, using that rehearsed gentle tone that made my skin crawl. "It's an investment. You're selfish for making this ugly." Sophie chimed in, smirking. "You think your little law job makes you better than us." I almost laughed. The irony burned more than anger. "This isn't about better," I said. "It's about boundaries." Mom put her notebook down like she was slamming a gavel. "Boundaries? Is that what you call abandoning your family?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder. I'd printed it that morning at the office, on firm letterhead. I placed it on the coffee table. "What's this?" Dad asked. "Clarity," I said. "It's a family financial conduct agreement." Sophie snorted. "Oh my God. Are you kidding?" Mom frowned, not touching the paper. "What's in it?" "Exactly what I've said for months," I replied. "My accounts are mine. No one uses my cards. Any request for money comes in writing with purpose, amount, and repayment terms. No guilt trips. No surprise visits to borrow things. Emergencies mean hospitals, not handbags." Mom's lips parted in disbelief. "You made a contract? For your own family?" "I made boundaries," I said, "because talking never worked." She stood up so fast the tea sloshed in her cup. "We're not signing that." "That's fine," I said, standing too. "It still applies." "You can't make rules for us," Sophie snapped. "I can make rules for me," I said. "And I am." Mom's face reddened. "Get out." "Okay." She didn't expect that. Her eyes flickered shock, then something that looked a lot like fear. "You're leaving?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm done being access." The silence that followed was thick, the kind that usually made me cave. But this time, I didn't. I just walked out. Outside, it was drizzling again. The kind of rain that barely touched your skin, but soaked you anyway. I stood in the driveway and watched the porch light flicker, same bulb that's been dying for years. I offered to fix it once. Dad said he'd get to it. He never did. Over the next 3 weeks, I learned what happens when you stop playing your role. Mom's texts came in waves. Guilt first, then rage, then pity. "After everything we've done for you, you're breaking your father's heart. You're not well, Daniel. You need help." Sophie went public on Facebook. A long post about toxic relatives who use money to control others. She didn't use my name, but she didn't need to. Aunt Gloria commented, "Family forgives. Be the bigger person." Tom, my coworker, saw the post and slid me a coffee the next morning. "Family or leeches?" he said softly. I smiled without humor. At this point, it's semantics. Then, one afternoon, Mrs. Greer, the elderly neighbor who'd lived across from my parents for decades, sent me a video from her Ring camera. Evelyn, my mother, was walking up her driveway, holding two glossy shopping bags, the same ones from Brightmart Electronics. She looked around, then slipped inside her own house. I replayed the footage twice. That was twist number one. The fraud wasn't an accident. It was a plan. And I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. The night of the confrontation, I didn't plan it. It just happened. Like most breaking points, it arrived quietly, wearing the face of routine. I had just finished work when I got a call from the bank's fraud department. A woman's voice, steady, polite, said, "Mr. Pierce, we've detected a second attempt at a high-value transaction from one of your closed accounts." I frowned. "That account's been frozen." She hesitated. "It was reopened last night by someone with your full name and social security number." I stood still, one hand gripping the edge of my desk. "Who authorized that?" "The application came from an address in your file," she said. "Your parents' address." The floor dropped out beneath me. Her name was Linda Myers, and she spoke like someone used to disasters dressed up as misunderstandings. "We're required to file a report, Mr. Pierce." This isn't just fraud, it's identity misuse. When I hung up, my reflection in the dark office window looked like a stranger jaw locked, eyes tired, a man who'd spent a lifetime explaining himself to people who never listened. That was the night I decided not to explain anything ever again. I drove straight to my parents' house. The sky was the color of wet concrete. The porch light glowed pale yellow, the same flickering bulb I'd offered to fix. Through the front window, I could see the mom sitting with Sophie at the dining table, both laughing at something on a phone screen. The sound of it made my stomach twist. I didn't knock. I walked in. Mom looked up, startled but composed. Daniel, finally, we were just talking about. Who reopened my account? I asked. The laughter stopped. Sophie's eyes darted to Mom's, a quick flicker of guilt. Don't start, Mom said. It was a misunderstanding. Which part? I asked. The fraud? The forgery? Or the part where you stole my social security number? Her mouth tightened. Watch your tone. My tone? I stepped forward. You used my name, my credit, my savings, everything I built to fund her fantasy business. Mom slammed her hands on the table. Enough. You're making this ugly. It is ugly, I said. I'm just done pretending it's not. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered. Let's all calm down. Calm? I turned to him. You knew, didn't you? He didn't answer. That silence was confirmation enough. Sophie finally spoke, voice trembling with anger. You always think you're better than everyone. I just needed a little help. It's not like you'd miss it. You took $90,000, I said. That's not help, that's theft. Mom's voice cracked. You wouldn't have that money without us. We gave you everything. I laughed a cold, dry sound. No, you gave me the guilt to earn everything. The air in the room changed then. Heavy. Electric. Even the refrigerator hum seemed louder. Mom pointed a trembling finger at me. You're heartless. You'd let your own sister go to jail? If that's what accountability looks like, then yes. That was when Sophie lost it. She grabbed the coffee mug nearest her and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, coffee dripping down the beige paint like blood. You ruin everything, she screamed. I didn't flinch. I'd lived through worse words. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin envelope. This is the bank's fraud report. They're filing a police investigation. I didn't tell them to stop. Mom's face went white. You can't do that. I already did. You're destroying this family. No, I said quietly. You did that the moment you decided my paycheck was public property. Dad tried to speak, but his voice faltered. We just wanted to help Sophie. I turned to him. By teaching her that consequences don't exist, that love means unlimited access, Sophie crossed her arms, shaking. You think you're so righteous. You're just lonely. That's why you need your money more than us. I met her eyes. No, I need peace more than chaos. Mom whispered, almost pleading now. Please, Daniel, don't do this. We can fix it. We'll pay you back. With what? I asked. The same lies you've been paying me with since I was a kid? The thunder outside cracked, so loud the windows rattled. For a moment, no one spoke. I took the folder from my coat pocket, the same family financial conduct agreement, and set it on the table again. It looked smaller than before. This was your chance, I said softly. To make things clear, you didn't want clarity. You wanted control. Mom's voice broke. You're not my son anymore. I nodded. Maybe I never really was, just your emergency fund with a pulse. Then I turned and walked out into the rain. It was coming down hard now, hitting the hood of my car like applause. I stood there for a long minute before getting in, letting the water soak through my shirt. It felt clean in a way I hadn't felt in years. Inside the car, my phone buzzed. A voicemail, Detective Carter, from the Financial Crimes Unit. Mr. Pierce, his voice said, calm but firm, we've confirmed the signature on the credit application wasn't yours. We'll be contacting your sister for questioning. I let the message play twice, then deleted it. The drive home was quiet. My wipers moved back and forth like a metronome. Steady, final. Every mile between me and that house felt like a layer of guilt peeling away. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew exactly what revenge would look like. Not lawsuits, not screaming, just silence, cold, clean, procedural silence. The kind that doesn't ask for understanding. The kind that finally cost them everything they took for granted. The next morning, I didn't answer the phone. Not when Mom called 12 times, not when Dad texted, we need to talk. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and drafted one final email. The subject line read, "Notice of account separation." It wasn't a lawsuit. It was cleaner. A single paragraph, effective immediately, all financial, legal, and digital ties between myself and the Pierce household are terminated. Do not contact my employer, my bank, or my landlord. Further communication should go through legal channels. No anger, no insults, just precision. Then I clicked send. The silence that followed felt different this time. Not lonely quiet, like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. Days passed, then weeks. The world didn't collapse. It actually got still, but guilt has a way of finding cracks. One evening, Mrs. Greer, the neighbor who'd sent me the video, left a voicemail. Her voice trembled a little. "Daniel, honey, your mother stopped by earlier. She dropped off a bag on your porch. I thought you should know. I found it when I got home. A glossy black shopping bag, tied with a gold ribbon. Inside was a small leather wallet, my initials embossed, and a folded note. It said, 'For when you decide to come home.' No apology, no admission, just the same old bait wrapped prettier this time." I stared at it for a long minute. Then I walked it straight to the trash chute. That was my revenge. Not shouting, not lawsuits, just refusing to play. But karma has its own sense of humor. A week later, Detective Carter called again. "Just updating you," he said. "We traced several credit applications to your sister's name, all using your ID. It's under review. You may be contacted to confirm the timeline." I thanked him, then hung up. For the first time, I didn't feel panic. I felt peace. That night, I sat on the floor of my half-unpacked apartment, the green-tiled bathroom visible through the doorway. A half-eaten pizza box beside me, a cold beer in hand. The air smelled like paint and freedom. I whispered it out loud, just once. "I'm not your bank anymore." And for the first time, it didn't sound like a loss, it sounded like a beginning. They thought cutting me off would punish me. But what they didn't know was, that first click in my head wasn't a lock closing. It was me turning the key from the inside. If you've ever been the responsible one in your family, the fixer, the wallet, the peacekeeper, then you already know what it costs. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to stop saving everyone else. So tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever had to walk away from someone who kept taking? Hit like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Because sometimes, the quietest revenge is finally choosing yourself.